We're Ace Comicals. My name's Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Rahul. Let's get started. Welcome, guys. This is Ace Comicals episode number 30. And I think over the past week, we've been living through that Swamp Thing winter special that I talked about last episode. Yeah, let's do that awfully British thing and just talk about the weather for a good hour or so. Anyway, today I'm joined by just Rahul.
Hi there.
We don't have Leon for...
Technical reasons.
Technical reasons,
literally,
yes.
Literally IT reasons. I think he's been pulled away
Yes.
at a work emergency. So,
Yeah.
Sorry to see you go, Leon, but we'll cope without you for today.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm joined by just Rahul today. And we have quite a list of stuff to get through still, actually. Still a fair few comics on here. So what have you been up to this past week?
This week, aside from coping with the snow, by which I mean I just stayed at home and worked all week from home, which was actually kind of nice, but it also meant that I didn't get to really enjoy all the grumpiness that everybody else did with, dealing with crappy roads and failing public transports and whatnot. But I did get to enjoy it from my window in my cozy office, which has been nice. Although I've been kind of sick this last week, which I think I might have complained enough about online, so I'm not going to do it here. I gather you weren't really feeling up to scratch either this week?
No, it was a long week, a tough week at work for me as well, actually. Yeah, but I mean, some good things happened. The tickets for Leicester Comic Con went on sale, and that's the 9th and 10th of June this year. So I've purchased my ticket for that. I'm going to be there on the Saturday morning on the 9th to check that out and see what's going on. I've never been to Leicester Comic Con before. From what I gather, it's a bit like an MCM Expo style thing.
Okay.
But I don't know. So we'll check it out and we'll see.
I guess we'll find out and report back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit weird that this thing's on my doorstep and I've never been to it. But yeah, there we go. And another one that I'm looking forward to this year is Thought Bubble, which is in September, and that is September 17th to 23rd. And I think that's in Leeds.
Okay.
Usually in Leeds.
That one does seem very interesting. It's got a lot of cool guests in here.
Yeah, and there's some really good guests this year. Just to name a few, we've got Gallard and Sebastian Gerner from one of my favourite books, Scales and Scoundrels. You've got Saladin Ahmed from Abbott and Black
Bolt.
Black Bolt, yeah. I will get my words out. And we've also got Leslie Hung of Snot Girl fame. So yeah, fairly good looking guest list. Not to mention others like obviously Declan Shalvey, Cully Hamner, real sort of all-star cast here actually, looking at it, guest-wise. Greg Rucka.
Brian Stelfreeze.
Yeah, Brian Stelfreeze.
Simon Spurrier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it
yeah,
interesting. I'm into this.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I want to check out. So I'll be keeping an eye on it, and hopefully I'll manage to get myself along, and hopefully we can get along as a trio. Because if all three of us can go, we can cover it for a cast.
That would be cool. I'd be into that.
Which would be nice. Yes.
Just so you know, for listeners out there, that's thoughtbubblefestival.com.
Yes, you should check that out. And also, obviously, if you Google Leicester Comic Con, you will be able to find their website, and you will be able to grab your tickets if you're interested. So yeah, I mean, it's getting to that time of year now where we can actually start to get excited about these events, I guess. So stuff to look forward to for when the weather gets better. Anyway, moving on to the comics. So the first thing I've got on my list is the return of Kick-Ass. And also Hit Girl. And I've got these two to talk about together because obviously they take place in the same universe and they're by the same writer, which is Mark Miller. So for Kick-Ass, we'll just go through the credits first. For Kick-Ass, we've got Mark Miller writing. Art and cover is John Romita Jr. Variant covers by Frank Quitely and Olivier Copiel. You've got John Workman as the letterer. Digital colours and inks by Peter Steigerwald, and digital ink assistant Megan Madrigal. For Hit Girl, again, story Mark Miller, art Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, cover by Amy Reeder. You've got variant covers by Kim Jung-gi and Rafael Albuquerque. I've got the Kim Jung-gi cover, which is Hit Girl walking through a door with a pile of dead bodies in shadow behind her. And when she walks in through this door, you've got all these guns hanging on the wall. I think this is supposed to be Hit Girl's lair, I guess. Maybe not, but there's all these like guns hanging on the wall and stuff, and it looks pretty cool. Your colorist on that one is Sonny Go, and you've got lettering and production by Milena Mikulic. So, confession time. I've never actually read the original Kick-Ass books. Did you?
I did, yeah. I read the original Kick-Ass books when the film came out. I think when the second film came out, because I watched the original film first, read all the comics in preparation for the second movie, which wasn't that great, if I'm being honest. But I mean, I like them. I think they had this cult following, which I missed the boat on a little bit. Not a huge fan of like the ridiculously over the top gory violence thing. But I kind of dug this new iteration of it, the 2018 Kick-Ass story. So dive into it and then I'll follow up.
So I obviously never read the original comics, but I have seen the movies, and I thought the movies were simply okay, and that's okay with a capital O. Although I actually thought the concept of it was really cool. Like, what would happen if superheroes in the real world, where that stuff just doesn't exist, like powers and aliens and whatever else. It's just, well, we don't know aliens don't exist, but I'm not going to get into that. But we don't know. It's just what would happen if we applied superhero like logic and people dressing up and going out there and taking on bad guys, but if we grounded it in the world that we actually live in, rather than having some kind of fantasy element there, which I thought was a pretty cool concept. Maybe I should get around to reading the original books, but we'll see. As far as I can tell, these two are sequels to the original run. They're two books that are sort of stand alone. They don't intersect yet. But they also kind of stand alone from the original run as well. I don't think you have to have read the original run or know anything about the movies to get these books. Having never read the original comics myself, I can pick these up and still enjoy them. I'm always told that the books are better than the movies. And obviously, I don't know how closely the movies followed the original books. I think having watched the movies kind of informed me a little bit with these, because I already knew who the characters were and things like that, but I don't think you have to have watched the films to get it. Both are written by Mark Miller, who was behind the originals as well. Start with Kick-Ass. The art is really, really good, and although it's digitally coloured, it looks like pencils and paints, which I thought was really cool. And it's what you'd expect from someone like Romita. He's a pro, so he's a big name. He's a big name comic artist. I wouldn't expect anything less from him, to be honest, as far as artwork goes. I won't talk too much about the story, but it's a different person in the Kick-Ass suit, so we're not joining the original cast again. And it's different reasons for doing what she does as well. The protagonist this time is an African-American ex-soldier who comes home to find that her husband has cheated on her and left her to pick up the pieces of her life and look after her two young children. The neighbourhood she's in isn't great. It's hard to find honest work that pays enough, and all the while there's the temptation there to do something that she shouldn't be doing, kind of thing, to earn enough money, because it's all around her all the time. And obviously she doesn't like it, so she sort of sits there thinking, how do I clean up my neighbourhood and make enough money? Well, that's where the comic gets started, and that's where I'm going to stop. I actually really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really nice, fresh take, and I thought it was a really cool way to revive the series. And I was really enjoying the artwork in this, and some of the work with onomatopoeia is really cool. In some of the earlier pages where we're shown a war zone basically, and there's just some really nice moments in the book as well, actually, in general, and some really cool full page work. Some really nice action in some of the panels, and the way that action is expressed. It feels animated even without it actually being animated. And even though it's not like it's step-by-step action between the panels, it still feels like it flows really well. And this is something that is more so in the Hit Girl book, I think, but I'll come on to that in a moment. Yeah, I mean, you read this first. You read this Kick-Ass book as well, didn't you, Ray?
I did, yeah. And I think I agree with you on most of these points, really. Like, the first thing that struck me was the art. Like you said, the coloring in it is really good. Like, I didn't realize it was digitally done. I would never have known, because everything looks so nicely shaded and smooth together, and I don't know, it has all this variation to it, which I don't think of when I think of digitally made artwork. Which I guess we're more educated to know that that's not the case anymore these days. But like it doesn't strike me as having been made on a computer, if you know what I mean. And the story, like, I think it's doing this thing where it's using your concern or affiliation with these characters, like, you know, the actual Kick-Ass from the Kick-Ass book and the Kick-Ass films, and flipping on its head. So like this new character is kind of usurping the name in a way, and I'm really interested to see where this goes, because I really feel for this character, even though she's making questionable choices. I really want to see what she does with this, because what exactly her damage is that makes her want to dress up like this specific character that has in-world, you know, relevance and a relevance in the comic book and movie industry as well, and just what that means. And I'm really keen to see where that goes. Yeah,
that's where I am as well with this. I think with the artwork, it's the history that we have with comics. When we've seen digital art before in comics done maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe even prior to that, digital artwork always looks very cold.
Yeah, like
always
shiny
looks
and
very cold and very shiny, very chrome, very
sterile in some ways.
Yeah. But I think this has a warmth to it. And obviously the digital colors, you wouldn't know that it was digitally colored, and you wouldn't know that it was because it looks like paints and pencils.
Yeah. I mean, that was perhaps me being a bit glib, because I've read many examples of fantastically done digital artwork. So I was maybe just running my mouth off a little too much there. I think this one looks spectacular, as do many other comics these days. I think
digital artwork has come on leaps and bounds, and we've come well on from the early 2000s and the late 90s, when it just ruin the experience sometimes.
And not just the tools, but like the mastery of the tools. There are so many really talented digital artists out there now, like thousands upon thousands upon hundreds of thousands. Because if you go on Twitter and you follow, just you know, if you do hashtag digital illustrator, you'll find so many talented people out there. It's crazy.
But I think the other thing as well is, like you said, with any new medium, there's going to be teething problems. And I think for the first maybe few years that you see this pop up and people trying this new thing, there's going to be teething problems with it, and it's not going to fit, and it's not going to feel right. But now digital artwork, as I say, has come on such a way that I think it looks great, and it's up there with traditional art, traditional media even. And I mean, a lot of comics now are digitally produced anyway.
Yeah, I can see the benefits.
Yeah. So if we move on to the second one, so this is like the second one of the double header, because I'm discussing these two together because, well, yeah, they're the same thing. They're the same writer, same
part of the same universe.
Yeah, part and parcel. This is Hit Girl. So Hit Girl is searching for a new partner and sidekick in this one, since the original Kick-Ass has hung up his suit, and the search isn't going well. The comic opens with her about to take down some bad guys with someone in the Kick-Ass costume. And he's just not into it. He's just like, no, we're going to get killed. I'm going home. Do you want to ride? Kind of thing. And she just gets left by herself kind of thing to deal with it on her own. Which she does. And she's still fighting crime. And she's been in it because it's all she knows, I guess. It's how she was raised. If you know the story of Hit Girl, she'd been raised from an early age to be like the ultimate assassin type thing. I guess it's kind of, for me, when I've seen it in the films, it kind of feels like a play on, you know, the Leon movie. Yeah.
The Professional.
Yeah. And she's been getting requests from around the world, and she's basically seen a cry for vengeance that she just doesn't want to ignore. And so begins the world tour. First stop, Colombia. And that's where I'm going to stop the synopsis train. And with this one, the artwork is fairly different. It's just cartoony enough that it gives the hyper-violence and blood spilling a bit of a slapstick edge. So I will actually find myself giggling at things that I shouldn't giggle at. And there's definite Japanese influence there as well. When you look at the way the eyes are done on some of the characters and the way some of the characters are drawn, there's like a real sort of manga edge to it. Like,
I guess because there's more of a martial arts focus on Hit Girl, isn't there? Like, she's a master of many different like violent combat forms.
Yeah.
From what I remember. Is it still Mindy McCready in this book?
It is.
Right.
And yeah, it's like it's got like this real manga edge to it with the way the eyes are drawn and everything else, and it's the facial expressions and stuff when people are getting punched and kicked in the back of the head and stuff like that. It's great. And it's just got great expression of movement, and I think that helps it flow from panel to panel. As I was saying with Kick-Ass, this is more so than Kick-Ass though in the way it works because of the style. It feels animated, without each individual movement having to be expressed, and it uses that to its advantage, I think. And it's very, very, very cool with beautiful colours, like the way the colours are done in this, the way that they play with like light and shadow, just the way that they use different shades, like the number of different shades you'll find in one page is like, it's fantastic. And there's a lot of purple. Obviously there's a lot of purple, which you'd expect because it's Hit Girl. But yeah, it's great. I think it's a fantastic book, and I'm interested to see where it goes. And I think as far as the revival of the two characters has gone, as in bringing them back to comics and making new Hit Girl and Kick-Ass comics, I feel that it's been quite a success for me because I quite enjoy these books. But then again, I never read the original comics, so I can't comment on what came before other than the films, which, like I said, okay with a capital O.
Does it make you want to go back and read them?
It does, yeah, big time. It does make me want to check out the original comics. And it makes me wonder why I didn't read them in the first place.
I mean, I think especially for Kick-Ass, the new 2018 Kick-Ass, it might make more sense to go back and read the old one because the taking of that moniker may have some, there may be some connection there and like her reasoning behind it. So I'd recommend them. I mean, they're fine. They're entertaining. And I'm, like I said, I'm not a big fan of the second Kick-Ass film, but I did quite like the first one. And I think, was it Matthew Vaughn who directed it? Has come on leaps and bounds with doing these like very comic booky action movies. Because I watched Kingsman 2 the other day, which I really did like. Like, I thought the action has taken a whole notch up compared to Kingsman 1. It just feels less frenetic and like shaky and way more like smooth and composed. And I really enjoyed that film. That was really cool.
Kingsman's another Mark Miller one.
Yeah. So I think their collaboration is interesting to see. Yeah.
Definitely. So we've had the second Ice Cream Man book now. And this one, again, it's just as strong as the first one, I felt anyway. I was really into this. So we've got Ice Cream Man number 2. The cover for this one, we've got one of the characters from the story, a very thin, unhealthy-looking woman sitting on top of an ice cream van at night, with the moon coming through the clouds. Clear night, moon coming through the trees. And yeah, this one, the whole theme sort of hinges around drugs and addiction, and possible redemption at the end. I don't know if it's horror exactly, but it's still a horrifying thing, at least to me anyway. Like, I used to have recurring nightmares about being addicted to drugs. I think it was when I was in college and I watched a documentary about drug addiction, and it just sort of played on my mind. Like, because it was like a documentary, but it was done from the addict's point of view, and they were keeping a video diary of themselves trying to give up drugs. And it really, I can't remember what the documentary was called, but it really got to me, like stuck in my head kind of thing. And I would have nightmares about being addicted to drugs because of it. And so that's definitely struck a chord with me. And like, just the overall horror of being a slave to something so powerful. And I think it did a really good job of like showing like a portrayal, and the portrayal in the opening up of a drug-addled mind, and showing the way it works when you become so addicted and so entrenched in an addiction to something that you will do anything to get it. It's like the total headspace of an addict, like the total servitude to the substance, and how it just sort of like breaks you down and reprograms you completely to do things that you swore you would never do, or do things that are were so opposite to anything that you held high morally or anything like that, and you would do it, you know. The art, again, as with the first issue when we talked about Ice Cream Man, is excellent, and it does a great job of expressing the starkness and the deterioration of character. So as you go, you know, like when you see people, the stages of the, you know, of going from relatively healthy recreational use to it being like survival, like addiction, and it also shows a different side as well to drug addiction, because it shows a side where it's addiction to drugs through necessity and prescription drugs, rather than through recreational use, and just how alike that it actually is, and the way that it does the same things. It messes with your head. It makes you into somebody you're not, and it puts a strain on the way you behave, and you become you get to the point where you need it, and it's hard to live without it, which is, you know, the other character in this book, which is the state that he's in at the moment. There's some really, really good full page work in this, actually, and one of the things I loved about this is the way that you've got panels overlaid on larger images or panels. So you've got like one big thing in the background. This book does this a lot. You've got one big image in the background, and then on top of that, you've got smaller panels of things happening at the same time in the same moment. And I think that's really good, and it gives you a real sense of like cohesion with the whole thing. Like, this is happening here in this moment, this is happening here and now, and it's all here, you know. And also, yeah, the way things like memories bleed together and things like that, and it really gives you that kind of like sense, that kind of jumbled sense that you would, you know, that you would associate with that kind of jumbled memory and jumbled sense you would associate with someone who uses drugs in that way, I suppose. And I think it's really clever and a really great way of doing that. And I think it makes for a really interesting book, and I really enjoyed that one. Yeah. What do you think, Ray? Because I know you read this as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. So one of the things I wanted to top off on from what you just said, So this spiraling reliance on drugs and how it changes your behavior. Like, who needs the ice cream man when you've got chemicals to fuck you up, right? I think
exactly
that's one
right.
I think that's one of the themes of this specific book, because like he barely plays any active role in this story. His ice cream van itself plays a very significant role in what happens in this, but like that's almost incidental. One of the things I loved about the art in this, like you said, it's got the big pages where it's like the broad scene and then these little flashes of moments of boxes that are overlaid on top as, you know, these slightly paranoid or like painful or joyful moments that these drug users are going through. I think that's really effective. One of the things I mentioned when discussing number one that I hope this series would do more of is, like, I was hoping it would do more of the Twilight Zone moral comeuppance route and less of the Tales from the Crypt cruel twist ending route. And it turns out what it's doing is kind of treading a line between both of them, where it's about the consequences that poor and selfish decisions that you make have on others. And I feel like I'm going to have a love-hate relationship with this comic because of that, because it's not quite giving me what I want, but it's also not giving me the thing that I hate. So I think this particular issue is heartbreaking, because it finds a way to have you sympathize with the compulsions and needs of these like fairly terrible people, but they're also very tortured, and there's a sympathy there for the circumstance or the situation that they've kind of put themselves in, and then the situations that they allow themselves to be led down because, you know, their priorities have changed based on the chemicals they've been feeding themselves with, and then it makes you watch as they like not only destroy themselves but incidental and innocent people around them as well. And I really dig it. It makes me feel really uncomfortable in a way that I kind of enjoy. But that said, moralizing about the harms and consequences of drug use, I feel, is a little bit old hat. I feel like it's an easy well to mine, personally. So I'd like to see them explore some different off-the-wall vices going forward. Like, one thing I wanted to point out was the preview for issue number 3 looks really cool. It's like depicting a middle-aged man in a power stance, rocking out on like this Frankenstein guitar that looks like it might have feeding tubes coming out of it, something like that. So maybe that's more in line with what I'm after. But yeah, I do get what you mean. Like, I can see how it would get under your skin if it's a fear that you have as well. And it does a really good portrayal of like how it can turn these people who were never that great to begin with, because that's one thing I don't like, when a story turns these pristine, amazing people into deplorable villains because they use drugs. These people weren't that great to begin with. You know, they were kind of isolated and selfish, and then they were using drugs to find some color in their life, which is expressed really well in the comic because they're living through this really desaturated black and white world, and when they take drugs, the world becomes filled with color and vibrancy. And I thought that was really well put. But you can see that they're using it to fill a hole in their lives, and they use each other for that purpose as well. And the decision that our protagonist makes towards the end only further serves to hammer that point in, is that she was never that great to begin with, which I thought was a really interesting thing to say, to not have this virtuous character fall into this descent. One of the things I wanted to say about the art, the color I've already said, like going from saturated to desaturated, was really cool. But then the use of the primary colors is really interesting. Like, we see our lead protagonist and her partner being painted in these bright red, yellows, and blues when they meet each other for the first time in a club, and then these same colors become the things which guide her to her doom. So when she's looking for a way to find a fix, and she follows these, like, she's checking all these cars to see if they're open and if there's anything to steal in them, and these cars are painted in these primary colors, and then she finds these visible music notes which are also in the same, following these bold red, yellow, blues, and then that leads to the ice cream van, which has these same colors on the font which says ice cream on it. And I thought that was really cool. Like, that was the influence of the ice cream man drawing her to her, the portent of her doom. And I just thought it was really clever. It
was very, very, very cool the way that's done, and I do like it. I like this kind of like signaling through design thing when you get that in comics. It's really cool. And I have another interesting theory regarding the ice cream man now.
Okay.
So, having read this one, I actually see him as, rather than, I don't know if he's I don't think he's necessarily evil. I think he's just a personification of fate. And I think he puts things into place to make things happen. And he's like a kind of like an architect of irony.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Architect of irony. Yeah.
Yeah, because he I don't, being as powerful as he supposedly is, as we get the impression that he is after the first book, why would he just let her take the ice cream van?
Yeah, it's like he's placing the tools in front of her to that she can design her own demise.
He's paving the way for her to create her own demise, and then he's adding some kind of like irony to that by bringing in the older gentleman who is suffering drug addiction for very different reasons.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a cruel god type thing, which again is the type of story that I wasn't keen to read, and I'm glad that it's not going that direction.
Yeah. No, it's like he it's like, like I say, he's the architect of irony and the personification of fate, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think that's a really good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. Have you got anything else to add to that?
No, I really enjoyed this. I think people should go out there and check it out. Super keen on seeing where this third, middle-aged rocker dude comes in.
Yeah. It looks to me like the way that is, it's like some kind of modified guitar, like you get these self-amplifying guitars where people have like modified it, and the guitar itself will have speakers on it and things like that. And it looks to me like it's just hooked up to a Jenny or whatever. But yeah, it looks good. I'm into it, and I can't wait to read issue 3. So, going on from there, we've got another dose of Americana here, because this is something that I read, and this is Doctor Strange Damnation. Now, this is written by Donny Cates and Nick Spencer, and it's art and cover by Rod Reese. And I believe he handled the colours as well. So somewhere in this book there is a Johnny Cash song. That's the first thing I have to say. And it really, you can tell Donny Cates has left his mark on this, because he's great at what he does, and I love the way that he manages to inject this kind of like this sort of thing, Americana, into everything he does, like into his writing, and it kind of seasons everything, and it's great. It tastes great. It's got this very sort of like country feel. It follows the events of Secret Empire and the destruction of Las Vegas, which happened during that event. I never read that event. This is the really controversial one, by the way, where Cap makes his heel turn and says "Hail Hydra," and basically Doctor Strange has decided he's going to use his powers to do something constructive for once. Instead of trying to fight something, he's going to try and do something constructive, and he's like, I'm going to revive Las Vegas. So he attempts to resurrect Vegas, but in doing so, he brings hell with it. Because naturally, when Vegas was destroyed, being the center of sin that it is, it ended up in hell. And Mephisto, being the Marvel Lord of Hell, took advantage of this and opened his own casino. So when Vegas came back, Mephisto came with it as its new rightful owner, and literally all hell is breaking loose in the city. As it is still under demonic influence. And it comes to the point where Strange has to play cards against Mephisto for the fate of the city and the souls that reside within it. And I just really like this in that kind of like dance with the devil kind of way. Like when you hear these like country and western songs, and people tempting fate with the devil and whatever else, or striking deals with the devil, or a lot of it in country rock and American rock actually. It's kind of like that folk tale feel, like a chance meeting with some kind of malevolent gambler, some kind of how do I put this?
Like Crossroads, you meet the devil at the crossroads. And
it's
sell
got
your
that
soul
kind of
for your talent kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got that kind of feeling about it, but in this one, it's more like kind of folktale wise, like dealing with the devil. And Strange is like our hero, you know, like waltzing into town, and he's going to take on the town's best cards player, who is the devil, kind of thing. You know, that's got that kind of feel about it, and that's what I really like.
I mean, that's what I love about comics, is like taking these different genres and then placing it onto their own stories.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, carry on.
No, just other different conventions and other genres. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. It's got that kind of air about it, and that's what I like. And I think this is what Donny Cates does a lot with his stuff. A lot of his books have got that. They have that kind of Southern Americana thing going on for him. Like I think it's because he's from Texas, so that might have a bit of a
maybe.
Yeah, that might be what puts the edge on it. But yeah, it's great. The artwork in this, it's gorgeous painted art, and it flows really well with these like fine, delicate lines, and it's just so well done and so nicely polished. The art itself, the way it's painted and everything else, and some of the panel work, some of the flow with the panels, because you've got some borderless panels where the borders are literally, it's literally paint smudged the border. It looks like smudged paint, and then you've got some panels where the lines are hard drawn, and you know and as it even does little things where as things deteriorate in the city, as you flip through the book, the panel borders get looser and looser, or more urgent, more rushed, and it's like lines like on top of lines kind of thing, like really like rough drawn. And I was just really impressed with it, really impressed with the way this book is put together, and some of the full page work is fantastic, like the way the panels are drawn, put together, and some of the full page work. There's some really, really, really nice full pages. Actually, there's one where it's because the casino that Mephisto has manifests as like a kind of a black tower, and there's a really nice full page shot of that. There's some really cool full page moments where it's like basically the way Mephisto decides to explain what's happening, and when he's talking to Doctor Strange, and the way he like uses his powers to shift around them. So like 1 minute they're sitting in a cinema, 1 minute they're elsewhere, and there's like the way he explains it, the way he explains what's happening is when he does it via during the cinema part, it's like film negatives. So the panels are done as film negatives, and it's in black and white, and it's really cool.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got some really cool page borders later on as well, where we're viewing things like through a cauldron. You know, when you're looking into a cauldron, and you could like divining through a cauldron kind of thing, and you can see things happening in the liquid, and we're viewing things through that, and it makes really nice. There's really nice panels, really nice panel borders on that, because we've got a team being put together to assist with what's happening in Vegas, and I shan't talk any more about it. But yeah, no, it's a really nice book, and I'm really interested to see where this goes, and I really want to read the rest of it. I'm really into this.
Yeah, I think you sold me on this. That sounds just from the like the medium fuckery stuff sounds really cool. That's what I'm into. So
yeah,
I'll pick that up.
No, yeah, I'm into it. I'm into it, and I want issue 2. Definitely.
Cool.
So I guess we pass over to Ray now for the couple of books that he's read that we haven't. So go ahead.
Yeah, so another Marvel one. I picked up Lockjaw #1. The only thing I really know about Lockjaw is that he's a big dog that has been in a pretty big character in the Ms. Marvel series so far. So that and he's a cute bulldog. Like, what more do you need to get me interested? So I first day pickup for me. So the writer for this is Daniel Kibblesmith, appropriately surnamed Daniel Kibblesmith, I thought. Pencils by Carlo Villa, ink by Roberto Poggi, colors by Chris O'Halloran, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So Lockjaw is, I'm taking this from the synopsis from the book itself. Lockjaw is a giant teleporting bulldog born of inhuman experiments on canines. His powers allow him to travel and carry others thousands of miles and even across dimensions. He is a loyal companion of the Inhuman royal family, especially King Black Bolt, with whom Lockjaw spent much of his puppyhood. Even Black Bolt, however, knows little of Lockjaw's original family, and sometimes a dog's got to strike out on his own. I basically just picked this up because I thought it looked cute. The book itself splits its focus between the titular Lockjaw and an established character, apparently. I've never heard of him before, but a character called Dennis Murphy. We see Lockjaw being basically just an adorable giant dog warping around to get breakfast, crash in on family picnics, and, get into trouble. Dennis Murphy is a former hero called Demolition Man, or D-Man. Apparently an established character in the Marvel Universe. I don't really know much about him. But in this book, he's lost his powers and is basically now just being a bit of a slob. He seems to be coping with this by angrily breaking his own stuff and rejecting the concerns of his family. So not dealing with it really well, basically. He's also dealing with some heartbreak, it seems, and there's a few hints to that throughout the book. So Lockjaw and Dennis, they cross paths when Lockjaw arrives to save Dennis's apartment from being attacked by flying hamsters. But luckily these hamsters arrive in spaceships which resemble frisbees, so Lockjaw, the giant bulldog, has no trouble taking them down. It's wild. I love it. So we talk about the burdens of number one issues a lot here on this podcast because we read a lot of number one issues. Lockjaw is doing the thing where it's very light on exposition and not even just plot as well. It doesn't have that much going on, to the point that it feels a little bit aimless, but it does do a good job of introducing its characters and setting its lighthearted tone. For example, we learn that Lockjaw is friendly, energetic, intelligent, kind of boisterous, and really handy in a fight. And we learn that Dennis is down on his luck, bad at accepting help, and really bad at dealing with heartbreak. The art is pretty sweet. It's functional Marvel, in inverted commas, cartoony and colourful, as opposed to the shiny, sterile look that we discussed earlier, when we were talking about digital art. The kind of look that I associate with Iron Man, or like the muted rigidity of Captain America. This is kind of like fun and light and bouncy. Lockjaw himself has a real sense of weight and momentum, because he has that lolloping, slightly uncoordinated, excitable dog movement thing, and it's sold really well. And then there's these bunch of scenes with like vicious hamsters being pinged around in a fight, which, has a lot of energy to it. Some of the onomatopoeia gets really repetitive. So like Lockjaw only ever seems to be described as trotting or barking in these, big fat orange fonts. And there isn't a lot of character to that, so it'd be nice to see a bit more variation on that going forward. So like I said, the art is functional, but it's also not like that playful. It's not filled with lots of background detail like Ms. Marvel is, for example, which I was a little bit disappointed by. But it's fun and cartoony, and everything has this nice grainy look, and all the colours are really pretty, and it does sell this sense of Lockjaw warping between these different worlds and then ending up on Earth on a really nice summer's day. So it's cute. I'm going to keep reading it, mostly just for the hopes that it crosses back over with Kamala Khan someday. So yeah, that's Lockjaw number one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick that up and read that. That sounds pretty great. My main question about this book though is because if with books where the main character is an animal, how do they portray his thoughts and feelings? Like, is it mostly silent panels, or do they actually give him a monologue? Or
no, he doesn't have any voice in this so far, as far as I'm aware. It's mostly just done through action and facial expressions, which are really well done, to be honest. Like, he does have this dopey look on his face a lot of the time, which goes between like calm and dopey to vicious and aggressive and playful and stuff. Like I think that's really cool. And like his motivations and his intentions are pretty well broadcast, because like the opening has him like keeping guard of Black Bolt, and then he warps to go get breakfast from somebody who, you know, expects him to be there. So it's like he has this established daily routine. And you can see him, he has this like tuning fork type thing on his forehead, which seems to be alerting him to where he's needed. And you see him reacting to that a lot. And I guess that's the main motivating thing. You know, you see him reacting to this ping that he gets and then warps over.
Yeah. See, the thing, like, because I mean, one of the coolest ways I've seen animal thoughts and whatever being put down on the page is in Afterlife with Archie.
Okay.
Where Archie's dog has, like, it gives you his inner voice, but it's all words all smushed together, like "run Archie run," all together as one long string. But obviously it's in a narration box because nobody else can hear it. The dog knows what he wants to communicate, but obviously it's like getting that across to everyone else through actions rather than words, because dogs can't talk. But yeah, I that's what I was wondering about this, like, how are they going to handle Lockjaw's thoughts and things like that? How are they going to get that across? But if they're able to do that through the artwork and through facial expressions and everything else, then that's fine. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool. And there's not anything that complicated going on really in this issue number 1 so far. Maybe down the line they'll have to do something like that, but yeah, there's nothing that off-the-wall creative in this book so far. Yeah,
that sounds really cool, and I will probably have to pick that up.
Yeah, I think you'd like it, especially if you're an animal lover. I think you'll like it, you know?
Yeah.
And so then the next book that I read was Saga number 49. So, like, normally I wouldn't bring up a comic that's this far into its run on this podcast, but because it's it's been on hiatus for a long time, and I've picked up Saga again recently after having not read the last couple of issues that came out, you know, on time. I thought I'd catch up for this one. So Saga number 49, the team hasn't changed. It's as it always has been. It's written by Brian K. Vaughan with art by Fiona Staples, and they've been this consistent pairing and working fantastically for, you know, the last 5 or 6 years since Saga started. So for those who don't know, Saga is an immensely popular comic. It's fantasy, sci-fi, high drama, soap opera with a like diverse array of alien characters and settings. The broader context of the stories is war and all the endless alien consequences of conflict, but the core theme is about family. In this case, specifically, a family formed from people from both sides of this war. Saga to date has gone to some really heady places. It does this amazing thing where it tells stories relevant to real-world issues and politics, such as race and gender, but in a way that prioritizes the story and entertainment ahead of the moralizing. There's rarely a direct ex-alien is representing wide real-world figure kind of thing, and it finds ways to bring to surface issues which can be reinspected from a different angle using these fantastical settings. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is it's fucking good sci-fi. Like, that's what the best sci-fi does, you know? And because we're late game now, I won't really spoil anything. This last issue, number 48, it closed off... Sorry, the last issue, number 48, closed off the 8th volume in the series. And this 8th volume was also the middle chapter to the latest book, so i.e. the larger arc. So that the latest issue now, 49, is the beginning of the end of this arc. So, I mean, really what I'm trying to say is you need to read this book to catch up on what's going on here. It's not really worth jumping in the middle. But like, we've been talking about moralizing moments in this podcast. So speaking of somewhat moralizing moments that this series does really well, there's a fantastic one in this book about the merits of learning to engage with people face to face, which I think is very relevant these days. You know, the harm that your words can cause when you spew them into a screen, you know, texting or twittering or putting on Facebook, without seeing the effects that it has on the receiving party. And in true Saga form, there's like an in-world twist to this scenario, which is truly heartbreaking, while also being an important character moment for those involved. You know, it's not just moralizing for our sake, it's genuinely an important thing for these characters. And this issue ends spectacularly. Like, it's not a huge action moment, which the series does have in places, but this whole issue is more of a bottle episode, where it's, you know, talking and reestablishing where our characters are. A couple of things I wanted to point out, actually, which I kind of rushed through. So this issue has all the hallmarks of the best Saga issues in general, like all crammed into one. It has this amazing cover, which has Prince Robot dressed as a newscaster, like for BBC, saying the world is fur, when it's cut off from the edge of the page, which is really cool. It has a page number 1 where there's like gratuitous nudity. It has people fucking. It has painful character moments. Like it has everything that I love about this series all crammed into this one book. It's so good, and like there's not much else I can say. I don't want to spoil the plot. I can't really add anything to the artwork that I haven't already said in the past. Like it's Fiona Staples. It's just that should be a synonym for, you know, fantastic artwork in the dictionary. If you haven't already read Saga, check it out. Number 49 is a good place to catch up to, and now that they're back off hiatus, so super recommend it. Saga number 49.
Yeah. You can get caught up because there's like 7 volumes of 7 trades out at the moment, so
yeah,
good way to get caught up is to catch those. And I guess that brings us on to the last one on our list, which is Legion. Because you've now read, because we've had 2 issues of Legion now, and I think you had some thoughts to air regarding this book because you've now read issue 1 and 2.
Yeah, so I read issues 1 and 2. I have to admit I read them quite quickly, so I might need to go back and give it a second chance, but I have to admit I'm a little bit disappointed by this book. To go back to something you said with Doctor Strange, where there's a lot of playing with the medium, like, you know, playing with the borders, playing with reality, playing with how this fantastical setting is portrayed on page, you know, to make you feel out of place. I don't feel like the comic does any of this, and maybe that's me, you know, like expectations can kill a thing. We've talked about this before. Maybe my expectations have killed this book for me, because I'm still riding high off the TV show, which I haven't finished yet. But I feel like the creators of the TV show Legion have basically made a compendium of every single unsettling, disorienting, disassociating, or just like broadly surreal filmmaking technique available, and have made like this surprisingly sturdy Jenga stack of madness out of them. And I was kind of hoping for the same in this book. And maybe I've been spoiled by stuff like Tom King's work lately, which, you know, I'm obviously referring to Ace Comical favorite Mr. Miracle here. But I feel this Legion comic doesn't have the same grand ambitions as the Legion TV show or, you know, Mr. Miracle, for example. I mean, there's one instance where we see one of the characters, Dr. Hannah Jones, falling into the mind of a madman, in inverted commas, and the representation of DID that's inked into a man's skin. But beyond those and a few, you know, like nightmare becomes reality moments, it feels like there's a lot of untouched ground where, you know, Hala's infinite array of personalities may leave room for an infinite amount of visual, you know, fuckery, which you hinted at with the Doctor Strange thing. So I'm just not that taken with it. I'm not that into the plot for this one. I don't really like the art style either. I'm not a big fan of, you know, David Haller's tall haircut thing. I'm going to keep going with it because I want to see where it goes and if it has the same themes and same, you know, character moments that the TV show does. But I don't know if it's the best primer to this character out there. I think I might have to go back and try and find David Haller's previous stories. I don't know how you feel about that.
I get that. The TV show is very different to what we're seeing in the books, and the books is actually like, the TV show is something else entirely. They're almost 2 separate things as far as I can see, apart from the fact that they use the same character and draw from the same source material. Which, to be
fair, you did point out when we talked about this last. So
yeah. The thing with David Haller as well, like the design with the tall haircut, that's just David Haller, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
That's a hangover from the 90s, yeah.
I see.
That's just the character. But yeah, I mean, obviously I maybe I talked it up too much when I talked about it previously, and that gave you too higher expectation. I don't know.
I think that in combination with how good the TV show is have like dampened my outcome from this. But I'll keep going with it. I want to see what it does. Yeah. I just think, expectation is a killer for these kind of stories.
Yeah, I was really into issue 2, and I really like this kind of surreal land thing, where obviously she was inside David's mind, and I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, no. and it's got this really nice cover with kind of like this totem type design where David Haller's head is an island, and you've got all these like weird creatures with the same hair as him, sort of like in his hair, which is really cool.
That is kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm into this book, but that's just me. I guess it's not your thing. It's not your thing. And if you prefer the TV show, you prefer the TV show. I think maybe
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe watching the TV show before reading the book probably spoiled you a little bit, because if you were expecting it to be anything like the TV show, then it won't be. Because that's not what it is. It's just an X-Men character, and this is just very true to his comic book form. These latest comics are very true to what I know about him from previous comics. So yeah, as in the way, apart from the way they portray his mental illness, of course, which they've done a really nice thing with that in making it like I explained before on the previous episode, where he's actually seeking help, and they've taken a more sort of nuanced approach to it, which I quite like.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to a close. We've ran out of comics. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame Leon wasn't able to join us. We've got the pull list as usual, so we will run through that. So these are things to expect on the 7th of March and the 14th of March. 7th of March is when this episode will release, so Wednesday, 7th of March. On that day, you will be able to buy Batman White Knight number 6. If you've been following this story, then we're coming towards the end now. It was only going to be 8 issues long in the first place. So the story is now drawing to a close, and we're getting up to the crescendo, and I'm quite enjoying it. If you're not already following, I recommend going back to issue 1 and checking it out. For me, you've got the Ghostbusters annual, the Ghostbusters 2018 annual, which is IDW. This is just obviously, fan favorites, Eric Burnham and Dan Schooning. My favourites, Eric Burnham and Dan Schooning, writing a Ghostbusters story again, which I'm really into, obviously, as always. And it's a prelude to the upcoming Ghostbusters event, Ghostbusters Crossing Over, which I think starts on the 14th. I've got that on my pull list for the 14th. So yeah, that'll be interesting, and that'll be a nice thing to pick up. We've got a new one from IDW called Spider King, which caught my eye. Now, I'll read the synopsis for this from the previews website. So, when a fleet of spaceships crashes into Northern Europe in 956 AD, a group of unlikely Viking heroes are the last line of defense against a brutal intergalactic warlord. Equal parts science fiction and fantasy, The Spider King follows the adventures of Viking warriors as they defend their world against alien invaders, armed with futuristic technology and impossible weapons. And then in bullet points, we've got Vikings versus aliens. And perfect for fans of Vikings, Conan the Barbarian, or Hellboy. So I think I'm going to be into this. We have Extremity number 12, which is the end. That's it. Extremity number 12. It's going to be the end of an era. It's the end of one of my most favorite books of all time. It's the extra size finale, and it's just this book's been so good, and I'll be so sad to see it go from my pull list. I really will. But yeah, Extremity number 12, and if you're not reading that yet, why not? Why have you waited so long? Anyway, we've got another issue of Scales and Scoundrels. Scales and Scoundrels number 7 drops on the 7th of March. We've got Doctor Strange Damnation number 2. So if you like what I've just said, pick up number 1 and number 2. Infinity Countdown number 1. So this is yet another, the third opener to the big Marvel Infinity event, because you had the Adam Warlock one, and then you had Infinity Countdown Prime, and now you've got Infinity Countdown number 1. So I think this is the beginning of the event proper. So this is the big Marvel Infinity event that we're getting this year to coincide with that film they're making. Yeah. Ray, what have we got for you for the 7th of March?
Okay, so for the 7th, on my list is Oblivion Song number 1, which I think we talked about in what we're looking forward to for 2018. It's finally coming out. Written by Robert Kirkman himself. Obviously published by Image Comics. About a guy who's... A decade ago, 300,000 citizens of Philadelphia were suddenly lost in oblivion. Nathan Cole makes daily attempts to recover these people who are lost. It looks cool. Not really sure what, any more than that, but the synopsis has me sold. And then we've also got Gideon Falls number 1, which is another Image comic written by Jeff Lemire, who I quite like. It was advertised at the back of Saga number 49, and it has the front cover where it looks like an island, but the island sort of resembles a human or perhaps an ape on its landmass, and that's just caught my attention. There's something called Prism Stalker number 1, which, I don't know, I was sold by the cover. It has like this vibrant yellow and pink theme, so that's enough to catch me. And something called Highest House number 1, written by Mike Carey. So those are on my list. Oh, and also something called Dodge City, which is about dodgeball, and I'm all about like sports manga and stuff. So
that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I want to see what that's about. So yeah, those are my picks for the 7th.
Is Dodge City manga, or is it a comic?
It's a comic. Sorry, it's a comic, but I'm into my sports manga, and it serves the same thing.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So for 14th of March, on my list, I've got Mr. Miracle number 7. Eagerly awaiting Mr. Miracle number 7. I've got Ghostbusters Crossing Over number 1, which is going to follow on from the Ghostbusters annual 2018 annual, and it's more Ghostbusters. We like Ghostbusters. Curse Words number 12. Versus number 2, and Marvel 2-in-1 number 4, which is the continuing adventures of The Thing and Human Torch. Ray, where are we at with you on the 14th?
So for the 14th, I've got number 1 with the Bullet number 5. We've talked about this series in the past. There's a new American Gods run coming out, My Ainsel, I think. That's another new number 1. And something called Eternity Girl number 1, which is by Magdalene Visaggio, I think. Again, just caught on the basis of the cover, but it's like this really trippy, crosshatched, colourful painting of this girl just staring out of the page. It looks really interesting. Something about a girl who is going to live forever and there's no escape to be had, which sounds super dark and cool. So, yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. And that's the pull list. So if you heard anything that takes your fancy there, then go out and pick it up. Support your local comic book store. Go and buy it. On to questions. So we've got a question this week, and this actually comes from a tweet that Leon spotted and drew our attention to. Someone asking a question on Twitter of their followers. And we thought we'd take it and modify it slightly and use it as a question for our show. So you are given one book from both Marvel and DC to write. I'm going to add IDW to that as well. And so what are those 3 books? And why, basically?
Wait, what? I'm not sure I understand the question. So you're
given one book from Marvel, one book from DC, and one book from IDW to write.
For you to write.
For you to write. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're writing. You've been given characters. Basically, rather than saying book, I'll say you've been given a franchise or you've been given a character to write. So why would you want to do those characters? And I guess if you would do anything different, what would you do compared to what's happening at the moment?
Okay. Well, you go first. Go on, tell me what you think.
Well, I had a hard time coming up with a decent answer for this. Because for me, I had a really hard time because there's just so much out there that I'd love to write and that that I think I would have like great ideas for, that I'm just like, I have no answer to this question. Wow. This is the problem. You see, I've been thinking about it all week since Leon drew my attention to the tweet, and I've just had no answer for this question, no clear answer. I was hoping you'd be able to give me something to bounce off.
I'm sorry. Okay, so like this, I mean, I was taken off guard by this question because I hadn't actually read it until now. But the two that come to mind, if you're giving me Marvel and IDW, I'm going to interpret this question as being, I'm going to write a crossover story between a Marvel property and an IDW property. I'd cross over Kamala Khan and Lock and Key. Right, because I would love to be able to write something from the perspective of like a second generation immigrant. So how Kamala Khan is a Pakistani girl living in New Jersey. I said New York the last time I mentioned this, and Leon told me off. So very clearly New Jersey City. I'd like to be able to write that character, but in the setting of what is it? Is it the town of Lovecraft, Massachusetts, in Lock and Key, and like all this Lovecraftian horror that the Locke family go through. I'd love to write a story about those two things intersecting. That would be cool.
That sounds pretty awesome. I think what I would do is I would have... I'd want to write the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I wouldn't write about the Turtles. I would give Shredder a solo book. So that's my IDW pick. I would write about Shredder, and I would give him his own solo book, and have everything from Shredder's point of view, instead of from the point of view of the Turtles and Splinter and everybody else. Instead of seeing things from that side, I'd have a book where we see things the other way, from the point of view of the Foot Clan. Kind of get more into why they do what they do, and more into what it is that makes the Foot Clan the Foot Clan. I mean, we've already had books like The Secret History of the Foot Clan and things like that, but I'd want to do it in a way that it completely flips the story completely, and we're actually made to sympathise with the Foot Clan as a protagonist of the book, kind of thing. I think you could do some interesting things with that. For Marvel, I'd want to have a go at Silver Surfer. I want to have a stab at that, because I think that's a place where you can just go mad, because it's out there, it's cosmic, it's you can just let your imagination run wild, and you can come up with all kinds of interesting and just like cosmic level stuff that you don't have to explain, because it's out there in the wider universe and it defies explanation. So you can be as surreal, as avant-garde as you want with that one, and I think that would be quite an interesting thing to have a go at.
I'd read it.
Yep, yeah. It'd just be the most surreal avant-garde thing you've ever read. So, but yeah, I'd like to have a go at that, and I'd like to. I don't know, DC. Where would I go with that? You see, maybe for DC, I would possibly have. I'd have a book along the same lines as King's Batman and Catwoman book. But rather than like Tom King's recent Batman run, where Batman and Catwoman are a couple and they're engaged, and we're going through. There's like in between actual superhero stuff, there's a lot of like couple politics and everything else. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to do something where, maybe you get Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy. Like, not that I'm shipping those two, but
that would be interesting. That would be
but
cool.
Swamp Thing and Ivy, yeah, I think that would be quite an interesting thing to do. I think might have already been done, actually. I think I'm probably talking about something I may have already seen somewhere.
Surely somebody's done that crossover before.
But it'd be something that I'd like to have a go at, a Swamp Thing Ivy crossover book.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Or like you've got Detective Comics, where it's like the entire Bat family at the moment. You could have, and it's like a wider Bat book, basically. You could have like something where it's like characters that are part of the Green,
Hmm.
all sort of working together, kind of thing, in a Detective Comicsy type way. I don't know, or recent Detective Comedy type way, anyway. But yeah, that's how I that's my 2 cents anyway. But yeah, I think my favourite one of the three, the one that I would most like to have a go at, would be the Silver Surfer one, maybe, I think. So that brings us to a close. That has been Ace Comicals episode number 30. You can find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Twitter at Ace Comicals. You can find us at WordPress, which is acecomicals.wordpress.com. You can find us on various podcasting apps and various places. You can find us in Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Castro. You can find us at www.acecomicals.com, which is the main hub for everything. You can find us on Instagram under Ace Comicals. You can find me on Twitter under @Batto. That's BATTOU. If you would like to pose a question to us at Ace Comicals, you can do it via the Ace Comicals Twitter feed, or you can get in touch with me on Twitter. You can join the conversation, strike up a conversation with us, talk to us on social media. We like that. You can get in touch with us at acecomicals@gmail.com if you want to send us an email. Ray, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me the easiest on Twitter, so that's @Monkeh, so that's @MOONKEH. And to add what you were saying, if you want to join the conversation, we now have comments available on our website if you want to, leave a comment specifically for a specific episode that you've been listening to. And also, if you've got this far and you're listening to us do this waffle towards the end of our episode, I'd like to suggest you go to iTunes and leave us a review or a star rating. I mean, you may not realize how much of a difference it makes, but it would be a big help to, get us promoted. And if you want to spread the word, if you want to, retweet our episodes, that would be great as well.
Yeah, and just give us some feedback. Tell us what we're doing that you like, and tell us what we're doing that you don't like.
Definitely tell us what you don't like.
Yeah, exactly. And we can work on that. Yeah. And that has been Ace Comicals episode number 30. So that's Ace Comicals over and out.